My name is Eddie Stern, and we are going to begin now a journey of exploring the ancient practice of pranayama from the yoga tradition. And we're going to take our time to go through all of the different things associated with pranayama from the very beginning all the way on up as far as we can go. I have been a friend of Dr. Deepak Chopra for the past 8 years or so. We started collaborating in 2012 on different projects, including the Urban Yogis, which you can see the Urban Yogis series here on the Chopra Well. And it's been a great pleasure and a tremendous learning experience to be working so closely with him. As well, I have been practicing yoga since 1987 and practicing all of these breathing practices that we will be going through since about 1988 or so. So about 32 years of studying and practicing and experimenting with these ancient practices. So thank you all very much for signing on from all over the world. I can see from Canada and El Salvador, Russia and Italy. It's just a pleasure to see all of you. And we'll let folks sign in for a little bit, and then we'll get started with our first lesson. So Deepak asked me basically if I would do a course on 108 pranayamas. And so what we'll be doing is 54 different types of breathing practices over the course of say 16 to 20 weeks or so. And we'll also be doing at least 54 different lessons on the science, theory, and application of pranayama and of these breathing practices. Right now in the world, breath work has become a very popular catchphrase. You hear breath work all over the place. But breath work has its roots in many of the wisdom traditions of the world. The wisdom tradition of the Hindu yogis in India, within Christianity, within Islam, within Judaism, the Egyptians, the wisdom traditions of Greece, the Native American Indians, Aboriginals. All over the world you'll find that breathing practices have been incorporated to do a number of different things, and primarily and also there's a deep African yoga tradition as well, especially in West Africa. So the breath practices are used to support all of our life, in fact. They're used to support our physical health, our emotional health, our mental health. And the yogis basically looked at it in a very straightforward manner. They said, basically, through the course of our life, maybe the course of, say, if we live 90 or 100 years, or however long we live, we're going to breathe approximately 600 million times over the span of our life. And that means that every minute we're breathing somewhere in the area of 14 to 18 breaths per minute, which is about 21,600 times per day. Okay, so this is happening without us thinking about it, just automatically. We're breathing all of these breaths every day. That's quite a lot of breaths. And the yogi said, this is one way you can look at it. We can go for many days on end without eating food. If you're fasting, and people who are very good with fasting and have trained themselves, sometimes they can go for 40 days without eating food. But we can only go a few days without drinking water, maybe maximum 3 to 4 days without drinking water before irreparable or irreversible damage occurs. So many days without food, maybe only 3 or 4 days without water, but we can only go a few minutes without breathing. So for most people, after 4 or 5 minutes without breathing, irreversible brain damage will set in. For free divers and people who are extremely good at holding their breath for long periods, I think the world record right now is about 17 minutes without breathing. So there's a vast difference between how long we can go without food and how long we can go without breath. So in the hierarchy of things, our breath is pretty primary. Food is down here, water's here, but breath is up here. It's at the top of our survival chain is breathing. So the yogis basically measured our lives and measured our well-being by the quality of our breath, by the length of our breath and by how many breaths that we took every day. And they said that if you have some health problem, if you have some emotional difficulty, if you have a lot of stress, all of these things can be improved or supported at least through changing how we breathe. So now with all the breath work that's occurring all around the world, there's a lot of studying and research happening to show that as you begin to change the way that you breathe, you can also change the quality of your lung capacity. You can change the quality and the expression of emotions, of your thinking patterns, of thoughts, of stress, and also your inner sense of well-being. So another thing that the yogis said was that breathing, and we know this is a basic thing, is basically a pattern. Like our breath is coming in and our breath is going out. And it's one of the many, many rhythms which makes up our life. So we have tons of different rhythms. We have the rhythm of our heartbeat, about 65 to 72 beats per minute when we're resting in a healthy adult. We have the rhythms of our nervous system. We have the circadian rhythm, the sleep and wake cycle. We have our digestive rhythms. We have so many different rhythms and patterns. There's a menstrual cycle is a rhythm. There's the nostril dominance is another rhythm called the ultradian rhythm. So we're basically made up of rhythms. We're made up of patterns. But our breathing pattern is one of the only patterns of our physiological systems that we can access directly, that we can change, and that impacts other systems. So while it's very difficult to directly control our heart rate, it's very difficult to control our digestion, it's very difficult to control our waking and sleeping cycle, for example. It's not that difficult for a few minutes every day to control the breathing. And when we consciously control the breathing pattern, it can impact our other patterns too. It can impact physical patterns, emotional patterns, as well as cognitive patterns. So what we're doing with the breathing practices that we're going to start now is we're going to start to apply very conscious breathing patterns to ourselves. And then we're going to see how it makes us feel. And we're going to experiment with those and see how we can adjust our inner state through using these breathing patterns to find greater levels of well-being, greater levels of calm, of a quiet mind, as well as the ability to subside or settle or slow down our thoughts. Okay, so that's basically enough of an introduction. Now I think we have a bunch of people signed on, so we're going to start the practices. And the practices that we're going to learn today are going to be what we're going to use as our introductory practices every single class moving forward. So what we're going to learn today is the introduction, and then week by week we're going to build up on these simple basic practices. Okay? So let's go ahead and start, and then at the end we're going to talk a little bit more about prana and pranayama and what those things mean. But first, let's have a little bit of experiential practice. So just sit comfortably. Sitting comfortably is the first important part of any breathing practice. You can sit on the floor, you can sit on a chair. If you're bedridden for any reason, you can do these practices in your bed, either propped up or even reclining. It's no problem because we can breathe in any position. So in any position, we can maximize our breath as well. So just sit comfortably. You can either keep your eyes closed or you can look down at the floor in front of you. And the first thing we're going to do is very simple. We're just going to bring our awareness to our breathing. So just bring your awareness to your breathing and have this feeling that I'm breathing. Because remember, we're breathing all these 21,600 times a day, but we're aware of only very few of them. So if you find that your nose is very congested and you have a hard time breathing through the nose, you can try inhaling through the mouth a little and then exhaling through the nose. Because if the nose is congested, sometimes it's more difficult to inhale through the nose. But little by little, you want to try moving the breath through the nose as much as you can. Okay, so let's begin with just a couple of minutes of just being aware that you're breathing. Feel the breath coming in and out of the nostrils and just see what you feel as you breathe. Just for a minute or so, that's all we'll do. And now very lightly, you can begin to extend your breath. That means you inhale for about a second longer than normal and exhale for about 1 second longer than normal, but not too much, just about a second longer, that's all. And see if you can enjoy the sensation of your breath, enjoy your breathing, like you would enjoy your favorite song. So I love music. I'm a big fan of all types of music. I love everything from Sanskrit chanting to David Bowie. So if you love David Bowie or the Rolling Stones or Vivaldi, whoever it might be, enjoy the feeling of your breath, just like you were enjoying your favorite song or your favorite food or your favorite piece of art. So there's a satisfaction to the breath. An enjoyment to breathing, that thread that keeps us alive. And then relax the breath, and you can open your eyes. Okay, so this is a very simple first practice. You can do this in the morning when you wake up, before you get out of bed. You can lie in bed, bring your awareness to your breathing, enjoy your breath, be grateful for your breath, be grateful for this thread of life. Let yourself slowly orient yourself to the day ahead by first getting in touch with your breath, that thing that keeps us alive. Okay. So now we will go to the second practice. And the second practice is abdominal breathing with a little bit of awareness of the movement of the diaphragm. Okay, so you can do this sitting up or you can do it lying down. I'm going to move back a little and put my hands on my belly so you can see the movement of the breath. And I see a comment from Arun about the practice of pranayama belonging to the ancients. And the practices that we're doing are very, very ancient indeed. If you look to the texts of the Hindu tradition, going back all the way to the Rig Veda and the Atharva Veda and the Upanishads, these are all sacred texts that talk about the importance of pranayama, the importance of preserving breath, lengthening the breath for enhancing the quality of life. In fact, I learned basically all of these things over my years studying in India. So let's go to the second breathing practice. I'm going to do this one lying down, just so you can see where my hand position is. You can do this sitting up or lying down. Either is okay. I'm going to keep my knees bent, my feet flat on the floor. And I'm going to put my hands so my thumbs are on my ribs and my pinkies are down towards my hip bones. And my other two fingers are resting close to the navel. Okay? So, if I was just going to show you from here, my thumbs will be on my ribs. My pinkies are pointing down, and these two fingers are near the navel. And so when I inhale, you can see the belly fills a little, and when I exhale, the belly relaxes in a little. So we're going to do this for a couple of minutes in a slow, rhythmic fashion, just so you can start to feel the movement of the belly. And then I'm going to describe why that's happening as we do it. Okay? So either sitting up or lying down. Either one is okay. Your thumbs are on your ribs. The knees can rest together. The pinkies down by your hip bones. And breathe gently, gently into the belly. Belly rises up as you inhale. It comes down as you exhale. Belly rises a little up as you inhale. And it comes down as you exhale. You might feel your ribs moving a little under your thumbs. Try to keep the inhale and exhale in equal length. When we inhale, our diaphragm muscle in the center of the body, it separates the thoracic cavity of the lungs and the heart from the abdominal region. It's a muscle that cuts right across the center of the body. When we inhale, the diaphragm pushes down a little, and so it pushes on the internal organs, and that makes the belly rise up. When we exhale, the diaphragm goes up, so the belly comes back down. So as we inhale and the belly comes out, this means the diaphragm is going down. And when we exhale, the diaphragm goes up and the belly comes back in. So let your awareness go deep into the center of your body, right below the ribs, from the edge of the ribs, in fact. And as you inhale and the belly comes out, have this sense that the diaphragm is relaxing down a little. And as you exhale, imagine or feel the diaphragm going back up, so the belly sinks in. And we'll do this for about a minute or so, keeping your awareness on that movement of the belly and diaphragm together. The movement with the belly and diaphragm together. If your arms get tired, you can also just put one hand on top of the other so the shoulders stay more relaxed. And the thumbs pointing up. Another one breath. Good. Okay, let the hands rest on the knees. Relax your breathing for a moment. And then if your eyes were closed, you can go ahead and open the eyes. Okay. So, the purpose of this first introductory exercise was so you could get a sense of the movement actually of your diaphragm. Anytime we breathe, it's going to change the shape of the body. So for example, when breath comes in, it's going to fill my lungs, it's going to push the diaphragm down, and the belly will come out. So what those are is those are a couple of shape changes. My lungs are going to expand, the diaphragm is going to go down, the belly is going to come out. That's a change of shape. And because we can't see our breath, it can become something, we're not quite as aware of it because we can't see it. But we can see our body, and it's easy to say, oh, put your arms out over here, or bend to this side, or twist to this direction. It's a little easier to direct the body physically because we can see it. But it's harder to direct the breath because we can't see it. It's invisible, basically. But what we can do is we can feel it, and we can feel the shape change that it makes within our bodies. So the first exercises we're doing are to bring you in touch with the shape change that breathing has on our body. And when we get in touch with that, all the other breathing practices that we do become a whole lot easier. Okay, so now we're going to do our second shape change. And this is one of the most important breathing patterns that we're going to use in pranayama. And that's the movement of our lower ribs. So if you bring your hands onto your waist, I'll move back just a little bit so you can see my body better. If you bring your hands onto your waist, you won't feel any bones there. You bring your hands up a little higher, and you're going to feel your lower ribs. So these floating ribs are what you want to feel. You can also put your hands like this if you're not comfortable with your hands like this. This can be done lying down. It can be done sitting up. Now what we're going to do is when we inhale, we're going to breathe into our hands, and we're going to feel our ribs expanding out to the side like wings of a bird. And when we exhale, the ribs are going to come back in. So we inhale, the ribs are going to expand. Exhale, the ribs are going to come back in. And the reason that's happening is because the attachment of the diaphragm down by the ribs are going to be expanding out to the side as we breathe in. The diaphragm will still come down, but now rather than feeling the diaphragm coming down, we're going to feel the diaphragm moving out to the side. Now this is very important because our diaphragm muscle is the main muscle of breathing. Our lungs are the organ of gas exchange. The nose is the first organ of respiration, but the diaphragm is the breathing muscle, and it's underused. So by doing this simple practice, we're going to begin to bring a new neuromuscular pattern to the diaphragm and strengthen our breathing muscle without worrying about the lungs too much. So please place your hands on your lower ribs, and they don't have to be flat down. They can just feel like this outer edge of your hand is what you're going to feel on the side of your body. And then imagine you're breathing into your lower lungs and feel your hands expand out to the side as you inhale. And come in a little as you exhale. Okay, inhale, feel the ribs expand outward. And exhale, the ribs come in. You can close the eyes or keep them open. And if you have a hard time breathing through your nose, this can also be done breathing through the mouth. Of course, nasal breathing is better to do. We'll cover that in our next lesson. So don't worry about the reason for that so much today. Right now, we just want to feel the diaphragm moving. So even if you breathe in through your mouth, make a little like a beak with your lips. And you can imagine you're sipping the air in. So you're not going and taking a big gasping breath like that, although that will work also. You want to control the inhale, so you sort of purse your lips like the beak of a crow, and then you inhale through the mouth. And either exhale through the mouth or the nose. Either one is okay. We just want to feel these ribs moving. And if you can inhale through the mouth and exhale through the nose, that's okay too. Whatever you need to do to get the breath coming smoothly in and out and feel these lower ribs moving. One of the things we're also thinking about is a slight elongation of the breath. So not a short breath, but slightly elongated. We're going to do this for another 30 seconds, that's all. And when we talk about a slightly elongated breath, you can begin to feel an articulation of your rib cage as you breathe. So with that awareness of the movement of the diaphragm, the movement of the ribs, begin to lengthen your breath so you start to feel the ribs articulating even a little more. Enjoy the sensation of the breathing. One more breath. Good. Okay, relax your hands down to the knees. Breathe for a moment comfortably. And just notice the state of your mind. Notice the state of your breath. Okay. The next practice is going to be something called resonance breathing. And resonance breathing is basically it's a ratio where you are inhaling and exhaling for a cycle of 5 or 6 breaths per minute. Okay, so anywhere from 5 to 6 breaths per minute, which means you're going to be inhaling for 5 or 6 seconds and exhaling for 5 or 6 seconds. And when we talk about our breath being a pattern, one of the oscillations or rhythms of our physiology, the breathing pattern and the heart rate pattern, the blood pressure pattern, our brain wave patterns are all doing different things at different times. For example, if our heart rate is around 65 to 72 beats per minute, our breathing pattern is normally, say, around 15 breaths per minute, maybe slightly more, slightly less. So it's a ratio of about 4 to 1 for the breath to the heart rate. When we do resonance breathing, we're beginning to bring our respiratory pattern in line with something called our heart rate variability, which is the beat-to-beat difference of our heart rate. We'll cover that more later, as well as the signaling that's happening in our blood pressure system through the baroreceptors and our brain wave patterns. And so there's quite a bit of research behind this, and it's very, very simple to do. All we do is we inhale for a count of 5, and exhale for a count of 5. And some people, they might be comfortable inhaling longer, inhaling for a count of 6, and then exhaling for a count of 6. So we're going to start today with 5 and 5, and I'm going to count you through it. And then week by week, we might start to maybe change those counts, or maybe you might become comfortable with a different resonance ratio for you. But for today, we're going to inhale for 5 seconds, and we're going to exhale for 5 seconds. And we're just going to start this off for about 2 minutes or so. Okay, so if you have any problem with this breathing ratio, just let me know in the comments. In the beginning, when you start to change your breathing pattern, your nervous system might begin to resist a little bit, because the nervous system likes to do what it wants to do. And it doesn't like too much interruption from us. And now all of a sudden, we're taking a pattern which is maybe not normal to the nervous system, and we are applying it on top of it. So the nervous system might say, hey, I don't quite like this. I want to breathe, how I want to. So what we're doing is we're overriding this pattern a little. So if you start to feel just slightly uncomfortable or like a little bit of stress, that's normal when you begin to override one of the other patterns of the nervous system, which breathing is one of those patterns. Okay? But what you don't want is you don't want a lot of discomfort. You don't want to feel like super stressed out. You don't want to get a headache. You don't want to feel panicked or any of those types of things. So if you start to feel like strong emotions while we begin to do this breathing pattern, stop, pause, lie down for a minute, stand up, take a walk, take a break from it. All these things are meant to be applied very, very slowly. Okay? So let's try our first resonance breathing practice. Sometimes it's called coherence breathing as well. Sit comfortably. And the first thing you do is bring your awareness only to your breathing. Just like we started, become aware again that you are breathing. And then begin to enjoy the sensation of your breath by lengthening the breathing slightly. And now we're going to inhale for a count of 5. And exhale for a count of 5. Inhale for a count of 5. Exhale for 5. Inhale for 5. Exhale for 5. Inhale for 5. Exhale for 5. Okay, now just relax for a moment. So that was 6 breaths, and that was 1 minute of breathing. So Anna Elizabeth, yes, we are breathing through both nostrils, if possible, through both nostrils. If you need to use your mouth a little, that's okay. When you're doing the resonance breathing, don't think about taking deep breaths. Think about taking smooth, even breaths, okay? So we're trying to make the breath long and smooth. We're not trying to make the breath deep. When you try to breathe too deep for long periods of time, you can get dizzy because you hyperventilate, you over-oxygenate yourself. That's not what we're trying to do right now. We're trying to slow the breath, make the breath even, and bring our respiratory pattern in alignment with our heart rate variability, the messaging of the blood pressure monitoring system through the baroreceptors, and our brainwave patterns. Okay, then this happens when we just breathe at this rate for several minutes. Okay, so that was 1 minute. Let's try to do a total of 3 minutes of this breathing practice, and then that will be all the practices we're going to do today. And then I'll give you a little bit of homework if you'd like to over the next week. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. So Stelios, you do not hold your breath between the inhale and exhale. Sometimes there's this feeling like, oh, I want to pause for a moment and hold my breath. Try to resist that a little and let your inhale go as smoothly as possible into your exhale. Okay, that's the basic idea. We want this to be smooth and rhythmic. It's a little bit of a different pattern because normally there is a pause between the inhale and exhale. Okay, so let's go ahead and do 3 minutes. I'm going to key and cue the breathing for you, okay? So sitting comfortably or lying down on your back, that's fine too. So comfortable inhale and a comfortable exhale. And now let's inhale for 5. And exhale for 5. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. That's 32 minutes. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Try to do a little bit belly breathing for this. Inhale. Exhale. You can even keep your hand on your belly if you like. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Last one, inhale. And and exhale. Relax your breathing. Sit quietly for a moment. Let the mind relax a little. Let your awareness settle in and feel as though the nervous system is settling in as well. And if you have any feeling of calmness or any positive feelings within you right now, feeling of quiet, feeling of evenness, feel like you're absorbing those feelings into you, like you're soaking them up into your cells, like liquid is soaked up by a sponge. Soak those good feelings, those calm feelings into you. Into every cell of your body and into your conscious awareness. So your body feels as though it is an embodiment of calm, of clarity, of equilibrium. And then we'll breathe in a long inhale and a slow exhale. And as you're ready, you can open your eyes. Okay, so this was a resonant breathing practice. If you would like some homework over the next week until we have our next class, you can download an app called The Breathing App. And it's available for free on the iTunes Store and also on Google Play. And on this app, you can put in a breathing ratio. You'll see some little numbers at the bottom of the app. Just press on 5-5 and then set the timer. We did 3 minutes today. Actually, we did a total of 4. And if you want, you can try 5 minutes. And then over the course of the week, you can build up to 10 or 15 minutes, whatever you're comfortable with. And just do that as a breathing practice once a day for the next week. And see the effect that it has on your nervous system, on the emotions, on the mind. It's one of my favorite practices. If I had to choose one practice to do for the rest of my life, that's probably what I would pick. Okay, so I think that was a lot of information for today and a lot of material that we covered. The final thing I'd like to discuss just before we take questions or sign off is the name pranayama. So pranayama is a Sanskrit word. The word prana has several meanings. It means our subtle life force. It means our vital energy. And ayama means to lengthen, expand, or extend. So with pranayama, we are extending and expanding our vital force, our subtle life energy through the breath, because another meaning for prana is breath. So we're using the voluntary control of our breath to expand our sense of vitality. Vitality is energy. It's our feeling of health, of well-being, of creativity, of positivity, of potential. All of these types of things are embodied in this word vitality. And so through pranayama, we're expanding and increasing our sense of vitality, our sense of potential, our creativity. It is, as I said before, an ancient practice, and it has its roots in the Hindu texts of the Vedas, Upanishads, and all of the Hatha Yoga tradition. On a macro scale, on a grand scale, prana is said to be the energy and fabric of the universe, the energy and fabric of all manifestation. Anything which is created is created and maintained through prana. On a micro scale, on a small scale, prana is that energy which is keeping us alive, which is powering living beings to breathe. So through forming this intimate relationship with our breath, we can then form an intimate relationship with prana, with our life force. Now, not only is prana our breath and our life force, but an even more subtle form of prana from the breath is our mind. And prana is the same in breath as it is in mind, but mind is even more subtle than breath. So like we can see our physical body, which is gross, or it has form and shape, but we can't really see our breath because it's subtle, but we can feel it. We can feel how it changes the shape of our body. Our mind is even more difficult because we can't really see it. It's hard to control, but we can definitely feel the effects of our thinking. But where do we feel the effects of our thinking? We feel it in our emotions, and our nervous system, and our stress levels, and our perception levels. So what we do is we begin to use the breath in the smoothing and calming of the breath to calm the nervous system, and then to access the mind and our thought patterns to bring an equilibrium to the mind as well. So we use something which is very gross, the body, something subtle, the breath, to change something even more subtle, our mind. And it's through our mind that we perceive ourselves, perceive the universe around us, and understand our place in it and our purpose in life. So when the mind is clear and our purpose is clear, then our life can be fulfilled. But when our mind is not clear and our purpose is not clear, we struggle. And we come to things like yoga, meditation, and pranayama because we know that we need to clear our minds. We want to restore ourselves to a feeling of purpose, to express ourselves and express our lives as fully and completely as possible. And clarity and calm helps us to do that. So pranayama is a preparatory practice for meditation to help enhance these levels of calm and vitality. And that's basically what we are going to be doing throughout this course of 108 breathing practices. So each week, we're going to talk a little bit more about pranayama, the meanings of pranayama, the different types, how prana is affecting the nervous system, scientific studies on pranayama, and as well, we're going to discuss some of the texts that give the original teachings of the pranayama practices too. Okay, so I think that's enough for today. Again, the homework is to, if you want to, you can download the breathing app and you can do, say, 10 to 15 or even 20 minutes of breathing a day. If you don't want to download the breathing app, that's fine. You don't need to. You can put a clock in front of you and you can just time yourself doing inhaling for 5 and exhaling for 5. If you're more comfortable with 6 seconds, inhale for 6 and exhale for 6, but try not to do more than that. And you can also count by using a mantra. So if you know the mantra Om, then you can count by saying Om, 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 Om. That's 6 seconds. And then you can exhale and you can mentally go Om, 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 Om. And that's one way of doing it too. So you don't necessarily need an app or anything outside of yourself to do this. Okay? So Anjana, yes, this can help with sleeping problems. I used to have a really hard time going to sleep, and I did this practice for 20 minutes a day for 5 weeks, like I had read about in the literature, and it really helped with my sleeping problems. So definitely you can use this for sleep, you can use it for anxiety, all things like that. So Lisa, I'm glad you stumbled across this class by accident. Thank you for joining. Faith, this will be available on replay. It is being recorded. And let's see if there are any other questions that we have. And David, yes, this will be reposted again on the Chopra Well. All the classes will live here on the Chopra Well. Okay, Mariko, I'm terribly sorry to hear about the gun violence outside your building and the young man who died. I really feel for you. We have a program in Queens that Deepak Chopra and I helped start together with a woman named Erica Ford. Actually, she started the program called Life Camp. And then we brought in a yoga and meditation adjunct to the program called the Urban Yogis. And basically what we do is we work to use meditation and yoga as an adjunct therapeutic practice for people who have suffered from the loss due to gun violence, and also to prevent more gun violence. So you can watch that series on the Chopra Well, and our prayers to the young man who died. I'm glad this practice was helpful, and please, you can check out the Urban Yogis and even join their classes online if you like. Okay, I'm glad, Alejandro, this helped you calm down your nerve pain. Definitely one of the things which is happening is by doing this practice, we are down-regulating the sympathetic nervous system. So I'm speaking very basically about the nervous system now. The nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, has two primary branches, the sympathetic and parasympathetic, which you've probably heard about. The vagus nerve is primarily the parasympathetic. It's 80% of it. And when we go into, when we perceive there's a lot of threat around us or danger, the sympathetic nervous system is going to be more active to protect us from threat, to perceive threat. And this is what fight or flight is called. And part of that activation of the sympathetic nervous system also is to release, inflammatory particles into the body so that we can prepare to flee or to fight something off, maybe even a bacteria. The body uses inflammation to fight invading bacteria or harmful viruses. But what happens is when we perceive threat around us, maybe where there isn't a threat, the body can't distinguish the difference between a true threat and a perceived threat. So if there's a true threat, then definitely we need to activate this branch of our nervous system. But sometimes we just perceive that there's threat all around us because that's what life is giving us quite often, 24-hour news channels and worry about COVID and all the other worries that we have, whether, it's a political unrest in so many of the different countries of the world, et cetera. And we start to perceive threat where there might not be a true threat to us. And our nervous system responds as though it's real. And then we find that we're in a state of anxiety. Repeated exposure to stress like this is called chronic stress. Acute stress is when we fracture our arm and inflammatory particles go to that area of the arm through the immune system and with the white blood cells to help knit the bone together. That's necessary, or if we get a cut. But then it only activates for as long as it needs to, and then it withdraws itself. But when we're perceiving threat, we keep releasing adrenaline and cortisol, and our nervous system keeps telling us, oh, there's danger. But there isn't. And so what happens is we're left with this excess of adrenaline and cortisol coursing through the bloodstream, and it's not being removed quick enough because it's not being absorbed. There's too much of it to be absorbed at the right levels into the red blood cells, and it's not being released through the urine, et cetera, et cetera. So what happens is, through this breathing practice, we are down-regulating the stress response. We're sending signals to the sympathetic nervous system through the breath that everything is calm, everything is okay, everything is even. And as we override the nervous system through voluntarily and consciously sending messages of equilibrium, of calm, the sympathetic nervous system slows down. And the parasympathetic nervous system, which is expressing itself through safety and contentment and pro-social engagement, reduction of inflammation, this begins to rise up and we feel restored. So the way you can think about it is that the sympathetic nervous system is the accelerator, like accelerator of a car. Parasympathetic is like our braking mechanism. When we go into overdrive with our stress, we don't have an acceleration problem, we have a braking problem. So what we need to do is we need to work on the braking mechanism. And the best way to do that is through regulated breathing. And that's all we did today. So you can try that when you feel stressed out. Hopefully that wasn't too complicated an explanation. If there are any doctors listening, of course, that was not a very scientific explanation. So forgive me for any lack of scientific rigor in that explanation, but that's basically what's happening. So you can think about stress. This is probably where we can close it off today. Stress is neutral. Dr. Hans Selye, who was an endocrinologist, a Canadian-Hungarian endocrinologist, I believe he was also a psychologist, in the 1950s in Canada, coined the word stress and applied it to what we use it as today. He borrowed it from physics, and what he basically said is that stress is neutral. When we have too much of it, it becomes distress. That means the body can't handle all the incoming input, all the incoming information. But when it's a positive stress, a stress that makes us grow, it's called eustress. And we can change a distress into a eustress through changing our perception. And that's basically what we're doing with pranayama. Okay, and coincidentally, Deepak Chopra also happens to be an endocrinologist, as well as many other things. Okay, my Instagram, Robin, is @EddieStern. So if you'd like to follow me on Instagram, I'm always thrilled to have people follow me. And it is @EddieStern, EddieStern, and I'll be on here every week for the duration of this course and then maybe afterwards. You can do this breathing technique before or after food, but I'd say like right after a big meal, don't do it. Just wait a little bit of time. Anne-Marie, you can try it with children with ADHD, but I would, sometimes children aren't always so comfortable focusing on their breathing. So what you can do, and Daniel Goleman is a teacher, is a doctor and scientist who speaks about this a lot, but he came across something called a breathing buddy in a school program where the young children in nursery school and kindergarten would lie on their belly and they would put their favorite stuffed animal on their belly and they would inhale and watch the belly rise up and exhale, watch the belly come down. And so with kids with ADHD, instead of trying to get them to focus on their breath, you can do the breathing buddy with them. It's very soothing and it works quite well. And Pumzilla, yes, you can do 10 to 15 minutes as long as you have no discomfort and focus a little bit on the exhalation. Let your inhale be relaxed and focus more on your exhalation. Okay. Deborah Cole, my name is Eddie Stern. Thank you for asking. And Steve, yes, the vagus nerve regulates pretty much all of our vital organs. It comes down from the brainstem. For folks who are not familiar, we'll cover the vagus nerve a lot as the weeks go by, but vagus is from the word to wander. It's a wandering nerve coming from the brainstem through the larynx, passing right next to the carotid arteries, into the heart, the lungs, the diaphragm, the stomach, the liver, the spleen, and into the intestines. So a lot of our digestive and visceral organs are end recipients of the vagus nerve. Okay, let's stop there for today. Any questions that I didn't get to today, we can cover in the coming weeks. This is a good breathing practice to do as a preparation for meditation as well, and as a preparation for your other pranayama practices that you might be doing. Okay, so let's close with a closing intention, a closing prayer. This is an ancient Sanskrit prayer. Today we will do this prayer in English, and next week we will do it as well in Sanskrit. So you can put your hands together, close the eyes, take one or two slow breaths, and then please repeat after me. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from disease. May all look to good in others. May none suffer from sorrow. Om, peace, peace, peace. Okay. Thank you all very much for joining today. And a big thank you to Dr. Deepak Chopra for inviting me on to do this course. And a big thank you to Nicola for all of your support to get this up and running. Peace to all of you. Have a safe weekend. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Again, you can follow my Instagram page at Eddie Stern. And my website is eddiestern.com if you want to check out what's going on there as well. Okay. Peace, everyone. See you next week.